Keep going, Michael.
Okay, I will. So the other...
Sure.
Yes, that would be great. So, sorry, I'm just bringing up my notes here. There we go. So the other project that we have been working on, which actually sprung out of the out of an LSTA grant, is the project that we've called eBooks for Southeastern Minnesota schools. And this is a project where we were looking to assist schools in meeting demands for information resources as they move forward with some one-to-one device projects. We were hearing more and more that schools were moving in that direction in a variety of ways. iPads certainly are high on the list of devices that are being handed out in schools, but certainly laptops and netbooks and even BYOD, which if you're not sure what that means, that is bring your own device. Don't bring your own drink. Completely different group. So we had an application in and were awarded a grant to work on putting together a shared ebook collection. So we've spent the better part of the last year working on that particular project, and I'm happy to say that we're going ahead with a collection from, and that we've actually purchased from Mackin. So hopefully those of you are familiar with Mackin, based in Burnsville, and work quite a bit with schools. And so we've actually purchased a collection of just a little over 1,800 single-use titles that we will make available. This is a shared cost project, and so the grant was able to purchase the initial collection, and then what, as you're probably seeing going around, is that schools can basically buy into this collection, but also their dollars then will go completely towards adding more content to the collection. So no, we're not taking a administrative fee off of that. It purely is, all of that money is going towards adding additional content. We realize that 1,800 titles doesn't sound like a lot, but the other option was to buy a multi-user title, which multi-user, if you're familiar with that, lots and lots of people can use it at once. We probably get about 4 titles at best. So, that's something we certainly want to explore towards, in the future, because I know that that certainly would be very beneficial to our school members. And the reason why that we really didn't pursue it is that, working with Mackin, one of the challenges is that if there were titles that we were interested that were multi-user, those really need a lot of negotiation with publishers. There's not really a set amount of money versus a single-use title. It's sort of like, okay, it's $22. But with a multi-use title, they look at things like, okay, so how many students, what, and Lord knows what other criteria they throw in there. It could be, the age of the student. It could be, other population figures, and so that we could certainly move this project along, we really stuck to the single-user model. And so for the schools to, and so schools this last week and actually even earlier this week got some information about, so what are the terms for sort of joining into this. And so for the first year, which we're hoping that we can get, sort of the deadline for this is the end of January, is an initial base fee of $999, and that's for the district. So that's whether you bring in one school, one grade, all 3 or 4 schools that are in your district. It's $999, no matter what size your district is. And then the other cost that is with this, which is very common, schools are very used to these types of terms, is a per student fee, and that I think helps sort of offset the base fee, no matter what size your school district is, I think this sort of offsets that. So we've got sort of two categories there. If they are an online school, or if even one of their schools, so I'll use the example of Austin. So Austin would fall under the $4.50 per student fee. So because of the fact that they've got an online school, we're going to extend that to the entire district. On the other side of that, if you are Lewis and Altura schools who are not on the SELCO online system at all, it would be a $6 per student fee. And that can, and we leave that up to the school districts as far as how many students they want to bring on to this. Whether it's we're going to do, our middle and high school, or if we're going to bring on just our elementary school, we don't have any, necessarily any restrictions there. It's really their decision. And so that's the first year, and then the base fee, if they've started in with the first year, that will continue each and every year. So again, next school year, another $999 for the district, and then we're going to do very small increments of increase for the per student fee. I think we figured out basically it'd be about 20 cents, going up 20 cents per student. So instead of $4.50, it'll be $4.70. And what we did there, it wasn't sort of this, we just pulled it out of the air because, $4.50, it doesn't really roll off your tongue. But what we looked at is we looked at sort of the average cost of a title in the collection that we put together, and the average cost was just about $22. And so when we looked at something like a $4.50 or a $6 fee, that would, basically say that for about every, it would take, for every four students per book as far as a, using it as a guide. Doesn't mean that 4 students will have access to a book, but sort of to do, sort of comparison to say, okay, if it's at $6, then roughly you're basically paying, the price for, 3 to almost 4 students for the price of a book for that particular collection. So we've got contract information out to our schools. We're still awaiting the very first one who's going to make the plunge and sign. We shared information with the SELCO advisory group on Tuesday, so if you have a chance to see any of your school folks, certainly encourage them to take advantage of this. It's also nice that we were able to go with Mackin because that there are a number of schools in our region that are already using Mackin. I think they said they figured about 40% of our schools are already using Mackin in some format, whether it's the Mackin ebooks, which are known as Mackin Via, or if they're buying their titles as well. The other piece of this is that if they already have ebooks that they purchased from Mackin, they can continue to do so, and B, Mackin will work with them that if they want to, combine them, all together in their instance of Mackin Via, that can be done. So really, all it is a whole lot of turning on switches on the end of Mackin. So that really the way that we sort of look at this collection is that hopefully it will enhance what they already have and at least maybe get them started with the collection as well. Go ahead, Pat and Ann. Yes.
Well, I have first a clarification and
sure.
a question. First clarification is the school district, there's their initial fee, and then for the number of students. So if they only have a portion of their students that they pay for, that's the only group then that gets to use this? I wasn't quite certain about that. Or is that up to the school district to make those decisions?
Can I follow that? Because because it made me think about, and this might be the last thing you even want to think about, but could you go as small as, say, a class size? Like, let's say a certain school, like we have schools that are, like our elementaries are K through 8, and maybe they only want their 7th and 8th graders. So they could specify that to you.
The idea was is that the district knows where they are in buying their one-on-one devices.
Okay.
Every sixth grader has a tablet, but not the fifth to kindergarten, and they're not worried about the high school because I don't know.
Different, right.
Then they can sign up for sixth graders. Yep. And then next year we will, we'll look at each population each year. So we have Grand Meadow, that's K-12. It has been K-12 with a device for several years, but we also have some schools that are not, don't have devices in all the grade levels. So we really are giving that control to the district.
So
what was, did that answer your question?
That answered part of it. The other question I have is something entirely different, but we deal with a certain amount of homeschoolers, and how does that fit in the school district?
Never thought of it.
never thought of it.
We went through an entire day. We have a school advisory committee. We had an entire day of a retreat. The topic never came up.
The reason I'm asking this is I know once somebody out in that homeschool group finds out, they're going to want to say, well, how come we can't? And because I know we have like homeschool people that are in groups, and so that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, and
leeway in school districts for the homeschoolers to interact with their district in many ways. The school district has a responsibility to provide certain resources to the homeschoolers. So my answer is quick and flippant in some respects, but we're working especially in this first year with a known commodity, which is school districts, parochial schools, charter schools, entities that have a legal standing with the Department of Education.
So essentially, probably the school district is going to have to decide how to handle it.
Yeah.
right, and we didn't include them in the scope of our grant, and so maybe that's something that could be visited down the road as we sort of move forward. But when we did the grant, we really were focused on public and private schools as members.
Well, that makes,
Does that make sense? Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm just
Yeah, I know.
groups out here and they.
Oh, right. Oh, exactly. Exactly.
Well, why can't we? And then how do we handle that?
That's when we pay $999 and
You could use local collaboration. Yeah. Well, or they pay if there's an association.
Sure.
I have to think about that from a legal point of view, because our arrangement with Mackin.
But I think the idea of what Mary Kay is saying, that they can, use their public library.
But then they're accessing the overdrive collection. They are not accessing the Mackin library.
But they are still having the ability to access.
Sure.
Some online resources.
Exactly. But it's a good point, Pat. Thank you.
I'll add it to oh my goodness, what am I going to do about this?
And you had a question?
Yeah, I do. I have two questions.
Sure.
The first is, I don't really understand how the kids will have access to it, and what do they put in a little secret passcode? How does that first work? And my second question is there like a break-even point? Do you need to sell a certain number of these in order to? If we don't sell, and I'm going to ask Marla, you answer the turn-on question.
Yep.
I'm going to answer the amount question. The amount, the $39,000 has been spent. It's grant money. The report has been filed with the Department of Education. We are done with it. If nobody participates in this project, there'll be 1,800 titles that SELCO owns that are available through McInvia, and we will say, it was a great idea. We used grant funds. It did work.
how long do you own them for?
Mackin says we own them in perpetuity.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
If,
They're not licensed.
they're not. They are licensed. We own them, like the own paper book.
Which is what you would have run into with the multi-use titles, where you'd have to. These were, These are not upgradable or anything like
So the
that.
$1,000 per year, that's you guys coming up with. No, you're going to. That's to buy the collection and to grow the collection. The $1,000 is a buy-in by each district, and the per pupil covers the fact that we need more titles.
Right.
So if nobody pays $1,000 a year in a per pupil fee, we have 1,800 titles, and they're there. If everybody comes in and we suddenly have thousands and thousands of dollars, then we will buy lots more single use, we'll buy multiple copies of single use, and we may even start getting into these $4,000 and $5,000 and $10,000 fees to get a multiple simultaneous users. But before we start paying $10,000 for a title, I want to know what the subject specialists want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they really want this butterfly book that every single child in Minnesota is supposed to read in October. Or maybe September, because it's monarch migration. But the multi-use titles are $10,000.
That's being very.
Okay, and then the turn-on part, how does that part work?
It works in about probably a couple of ways.
Okay.
First of all, Mac and VIA can be accessed just from a computer, so a workstation. And in most of those cases, I believe it's done. I'm thinking it's done by IP authentication, but because this is also a product that has sort of an individual aspect to it, it has, I think they call it a backpack. I'm hoping that's the one that Mackin uses, because they all use some term. I think Mackin has the backpack. Anyway, that's where they, that students can sort of keep track of the things that they have. So if they've checked something out, and that would be, up to the school as far as how they are going to do that, if they're going to assign usernames and passwords, or if it's, a single one for everyone, which probably doesn't make sense if you're trying to do the individual thing. So there are things that Mackin works with the individual schools to actually do to be able to access it. They also have apps for the devices as well. So there's a Mackin VIA app for, your iOS, for Android, and I believe there is one that can do sort of Kindle, but of course, just like anything, Amazon Kindle, it may work today. They may spy on you tomorrow. No, so there are a variety of ways that they'll be able to access. Yeah, there is a free app for it. So, but Mackin is willing to offer the support to these schools, because they're already doing it anyway, especially if you already have Mac and VIA in your schools. They're set up to take care of those technical support issues.
So there aren't any librarians anymore at the schools in Austin, I don't think. Pretty sure not.
I think pretty
So this
right on.
card isn't going to go to anybody. Oh, that's not true? Is it? Michael did a really, really thorough job. And we sent.
Did you? I got a stack that big.
Yeah.
We didn't want to forget. We sent them to all of the media centers. We sent them to the principals of each school.
Okay.
The superintendent got something, and I think in Austin, the curriculum director, I think, is the. So wherever we could find that many people, that's who. Actually,
over 400. Good.
Yep.
So then, and then if somebody calls you up, then does the Mackin person go and show them how it all works? Is that how it works?
They have, they are willing to certainly show how to do that, but I can tell you that where they have focused a lot of their training is that they've got, it's on online, and they've put together, I've seen them, they're great little videos on how you make these things work.
Okay.
So that's where they focus a lot of it. I don't know how much training that they do, where they go out in the field and sort of show folks how to use these things. But if that is something that we would need, Mackin is certainly amenable to doing that. But they put a lot of their focus on the training piece of it into, with your Mackin account, they've got the information there as, here's how you use it on a, an iOS device, here's how you use it on Android.
And so if you have the Mackin Via app on your iPad, you type in your school, you type in your user ID, which I assume is going to be a kid's house lunch number, and password. Cool. And then they're in it. So nice and pretty.
So the information did go to each of the school media centers. I understand that, especially in the Austin, but Owatonna is sort of in the same boat, where I'm not sure who was there. We just sent it to the contact at the media center.
Yeah, curriculum person.
And there's
another one there too, the same one.
So we sort of tried to cover everything because we knew that would be an issue. No, I know it.
That way, I was just like, okay,
Yep.
if I think this is great, like, is there somebody I can volunteer to decide
And actually, Ann, there is a media center specialist at Austin High.
what? They do.
Amy Susan?
And she's just getting started. I met with her a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah.
so that's somebody.
I met with her on Monday. So rest assured, all of the schools in your, in your town or that you may serve in your county, you have got this information, and probably in some cases, like Brad, got it in
Thank you.
quadruple it.
And part of the purpose of that is this is to sell more for the district than just the library to buy in. Particularly when you look at the money involved, it's going to be a district buy-in rather than just saying it's in the library's collection.
Right. And that's, I think, the thing also to if you have the opportunity. I think we've got a number of school library media folks who are a bit concerned about how this is going to get paid for, because certainly their world is what's in their media center versus what's available in the district. So my thought is that if you have the opportunity to touch base with, certainly, obviously, you might have access to the superintendent, but certainly principals of any of the buildings, because they did receive all of that information. So, and if they do have questions or you get questions from them, please let us know, because Ann and I can certainly answer, the questions, and we've fielded a number of them already. Sometimes.
And they've come in some cases from the media specialist in a district where there is still one. But I had a conversation, it's Thursday, right? Monday, with the district curriculum director, who was meeting with the curriculum staff that afternoon in 2 hours. So I filled her in on everything. So it really was being discussed at a level beyond the media center. That's very exciting. You want us to act as ambassadors? Right.
That would be great. Do you need a sash?
No, you know people in your community.
Yeah.
Obviously it's going to be easier for Pat to talk to maybe the people in Stewartsville because they already have a knowledge of SELCO as an online library, or Monica because Chatfield's online. Less known is SELCO is less known in Owatonna because
That's right, exactly.
That's where I was going.
Yes.
That's where I was going. Was yes, if you want to give somebody a call and say you got this packet, these multiple packets. So the more schools that participate, the more content there will be for students. If nobody participates, then we use grant dollars to try something that didn't work.
And I'll end on this one. To see what titles were actually purchased, because librarians like that kind of thing. They want to know, well, what did you get? They are on the page for this. The page is called, what is it called? Mackin Via for Schools. It's underneath of, if you go to our website and go to services and go to electronic resources, it's one of the tabs there. The list of titles that we have purchased is there. It's a Google Doc, so you can.
All 1,839?
I think
24?
26
Okay.
are there. So there's, and it has the information about sort of how we came to this point. So I'm really hopeful. I think Mackin is also hopeful. They've been working a long time, and they've had discussions over the years with other regions in the state. But I think we're really their first one to sort of make the breakthrough.
In Minnesota, we're going to try and catch up to Iowa.
Right. Exactly. So yes, if you would serve as ambassadors, that would be great. I think that it is a great collection. It's both fiction and nonfiction. The older student collections are much more, a little bit heavier in fiction. So that's just because what our school libraries were saying is that they would like a little bit more, fiction in that particular collection. But there is nonfiction available in all of those. So.
And this will be available to students 12 months of the year?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are there any more questions? Brett?
First of all, congratulations, good job on this, because I know how tough that had to have been to find something for everybody. 2 questions. Worst case scenario, if you said you own these in forever, yeah, whatever that word is. I mean, are you able to transfer? Could you sell those? I mean, you said there are some schools that are already using Mackin. Would you be able to sell those to get some of that back? If after a year, I mean, nobody's, like I said, worst case scenario, nobody signed up. I doubt you could because of the grant. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we have to wait 3 years with those grants. I think we have to.
We can't realize any financial benefit from the federal dollars for either 3 or 7 years. We'd have to check with the state library. So like when we did the satellite installation to see whether or not we could do telecommunications via satellite, we actually, when that project proved that it did not offer a stable enough connection for our ILS, when we took all that equipment out, we literally had to house the equipment for 5 years before we could get rid of it. We tried to sell it, nobody wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So we had all kinds of dishes.
No, and like I said, that worst case scenario,
If you've got the 1,800 titles or SELCO, could you just then open it up to add it to your ebook collection?
You are asking me questions I have not thought about and I haven't talked to Mackin about.
Okay.
So, first things first.
Yeah,
First
that's
things
right.
first. Let's see if this fails.
Right, no, and that's why I say it was a worst case scenario. My second question.
Right, exactly. And the idea too, is that there's a shared cost, and really that, why we're charging the fee isn't because we need them to pay for these titles. We actually want to add more stuff in there, and that's really the whole idea behind that. And that's been stressed from the beginning. So, it hasn't been a surprise. I think it's been more of a, well, how are we going to do this? And so, we had to work through the grant to sort of figure out, okay, well, what is it that we are able to do?
So this is my role as ambassador. So if Mackin walked into, say, Sumner Elementary and wanted to sell them access to a collection of 1,800 titles, how much would it cost them to buy it? Because that's how they're going to kind of see it.
How much is it? $39,000.
$39,000
Yep.
for just.
If they were going to buy that 1,800 titles, they would pay $39,000.
Just one school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get it for 1,000.
Because that was the price of the title.
To own them for forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
In perpetuity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the last one,
Make it quick. We gotta get moving.
Does this hook up with Enterprise? I mean, will this be could the Mackin titles be found on Enterprise?
We're going to put them in the catalog for the online school.
Yeah.
For the
Not directly like Overdrive does, but we will put it in
There's
there.
no APIs yet, but
Okay.
you'll be able to find the title.
We're working on that.
Interesting.
That's a good question.
I didn't see it yet.
All right, if you have other questions, catch up with me. We're going to go ahead.
Before you move on, I have an answer to John's question. Allied Telesis
Yes.
is the name of the
Routers.
switches.
Switches.
No, that's fine.
Got it.
Any more discussion? Just kidding. Yeah.
What do we have next?
We're going to go on to the status on assistant director.
Okay, so for the public library directors who are here on Tuesday, I apologize, this is going to be the same thing. So when we did the strategic planning process, the surveys and an all-day retreat, what kept coming up was the need for more communication, both from SELCO to the libraries, libraries to SELCO, libraries between each other. Consultants recommended hiring communications and marketing specialists, but we had no personnel dollars to do so. So with Michael's departure, I'm taking a radical new approach, and I'm contracting or looking for an individual, preferably contracting with a firm, to do communications, marketing, publicity. The job description is written in such a way that this person would do part of their work for SELCO and part of the work for the library. So, and I'm really leaning towards a firm rather than a single individual that we would hire, with the idea being that if we get a dedicated person from a firm and what we need that person can't do, we can go back to the firm and say, here's this complete package of communications that we want done. So at this point, the job posting and RFP request for proposals is out on the website. I have had several phone calls in response to the posting. We've got several actual job applications from individuals that we've received. So I'm hopeful that by November 3rd I'll have something to look at. And hopefully it will be, if everything goes like I would like, with a contract with a firm, it will be a limited term contract to see if this is wild and crazy and we'll move on, or if it actually does succeed. One of the questions that came up yesterday was where would this person be housed, and I'm looking to have this person actually in this building for the majority of the time, or if not in the building, then out visiting libraries. So different approach with the salary dollars that had been allocated to the assistant director.
Are there any questions?
Okay.
Great.